it's interesting, by the way, that we've been called entrepreneurs and we are 5 investors, but but we know something about entrepreneurship, right?
So we can. Anil counts.
Anil's an entrepreneur.
Anil's an entrepreneur.
Welcome to our panel. We're going to speak in the next hour or so about agriculture and agricultural technology and the challenges and frustrations and hopefully of some wins also. The reason I'm sitting here in this panel is because I'm engaged in the ag tech investment in the past 6 years, mainly in crop production technologies in all sorts of stages, from early stages to later stages. Before we begin, I suggest that maybe each one of you will say something more, like a brief introduction about himself and about what he does, and then we'll get into our discussion.
I'm Anil Jain. We run a company based headquartered in India, and we come from a farming family. We are focused on the entire agri-value chain. My father started the business. Today he's no more, and we are adding about 500,000 new farmers every year. They do need access to knowledge, technology, and handholding to change the way they do agriculture. On one hand, we are involved in the entire agri-value chain, so we provide to farmers inputs like efficient irrigation systems, which allows them to save water and improve productivity. We buy from farmers what they grow, fruits and vegetables. We also provide things like solar water pump in terms of energy solutions. And as we have grown, we do not operate just in India. We're also operating outside India now in almost about 100 countries. So we can deal with a small farmer having 1 acre and give him access to knowledge technology. We can also deal with a farmer who has 10,000 acres. I mean, we are able to balance both. And we see, if I'm thinking of long term, 10, 20, 30 years, agriculture is best opportunity in terms of investment, because there is so much more productivity increases are still possible. Technology usage is still at a very low level, and any entrepreneur or investor who wants to get in can and will create a transformative impact if you get into the agriculture side. That's our view.
I'm going to challenge you on that.
Sure.
Good morning. Dan Bryant with Walmart. Delighted to be here. Thank you for the kind invitation to the summit organizers. Walmart is a company that started out a small company in farming country in the United States. And yet for most of our 55 years, we did not sell food in any meaningful way. And yet over the last 15 years, Walmart has become the largest food grocer in the world. So Walmart now, a majority of our business is oriented around food. 52% of our sales last year globally were food related. So we have become significantly a business that is concerned about food, about farming, about food safety, food security, food quality. And so as a company that is looking to win the hearts and minds of consumers and to strengthen a reputation for being committed to quality, we are profoundly focused on farming. And over the last number of years, we have begun to build out in a significant way a direct farming approach, where we are interacting very directly with farmers and increasingly with smallhold farmers around the world. And so today, by the way, I'm very pleased to announce on behalf of Walmart that we will be making a $2 million grant effective today to Agribusiness Systems International, ASI, a very effective player in the value-added farming space that many of you know about. This grant is focused here in Andhra Pradesh and is focused on training 15,000 farmers over the next 2 years to help them become more sophisticated in the way that they anticipate where the market is, where consumers are, where where buyers are in terms of the kind of goods they're looking for. And by connecting these farmers earlier in the decision-making process regarding planting, they are able then to be more sophisticated in the way they think about crop rotation, crop selection, etc. So we're delighted to make this announcement today. And it is emblematic of the growing commitment that Walmart has to be building out the agro supply chain and strengthening our direct farm initiative.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Kahn. I run a venture fund here in India called Omnivore. We have been operating since 2011, and we are entirely dedicated to funding startups that are developing breakthrough technologies for food, agriculture, and the rural economy. I come from an agribusiness background, and my partner, my co-founder, and I launched Omnivore in 2011 because we saw that while the venture ecosystem was developing very rapidly, traditional VCs didn't touch anything to do with essentially 20% of the Indian economy and 50% of the Indian population. And we thought this needed to change. We raised a $40 million fund that we've just finished deploying last year, and are in the process of, we're going to be shortly announcing a $90 million fund that with new investors coming in. So we'll be back in the market again very actively in 2018 and for the next few years. Generally speaking, we spend most of our time focused on three themes. So the first is agricultural technology. These are sort of new technologies that farmers are using to drive profitability, to drive sustainability. We are equally interested in the space of innovative food, kind of the changing nature of the Indian consumer and their consumption habits, especially where those deals link back to value chains that touch smallholder farmers. And we're also quite keen to invest in what we call rural technologies, which are really enabling technologies for the rural economy, whether it's fintech for farmers, clean tech for farmers, storage or logistics technology for farmers. We look at the farmer as an economic actor and sort of back startups that are developing new technologies that will improve that world that the farmer is living in. If I were to kind of give examples of our portfolio, Stellaps, which is a dairy IoT company based in Bangalore that is now processing a huge number of transactions daily. It's become sort of the fintech backbone of the dairy industry. Skymet, which is the leading private weather forecaster in India. EcoZen, which does first mile farm gate-based cold storage systems. That's kind of three of them, but very happy to be here, very excited to meet everyone and be on this panel and talk about what the future looks like.
My name is Ritu Varma. We also run a fund. It's called Uncle Capital. The focus of the fund is to invest in very early stage companies. And unlike everybody else here, we are actually a broad-based fund. Our investment thesis is sort of looking at technologies that can actually unlock what I would call mass markets in India. So looking at things that are happening in smaller town, that's happening in rural India. And we look across agriculture, health, education, and I would say vernacular enabling technologies in the Indian context. 60% of our portfolio has been in ag, so and it will continue to grow. It's one of those sectors that has that is very attractive to us, that we're very excited about the future of it. And so our investments have actually grown in the agri space vis-a-vis spread out in some of the other spaces. In agriculture, we invest, so we are gung-ho about technology, both software as well as hardware. And we take a look at anything from from seeds to pre-harvest, post-harvest, smart farming, the full value chain from seed to food, I would say. So anything that are exciting, interesting opportunities in there. And to us, for most of it, ends up dealing with smallholder farmers, given the nature of the Indian agrarian system. So anything that leads to productivity gains, leads to better efficiencies, reduce frictions in these value chains, are things that we're interested in. Yeah. So we are very excited about the agri sector. I mean, personally, I feel there are three things here in the Indian context. One is the fact is that, as Anil said, the technology adoption has been very, very low. So the base is very low for things to actually go up. There is a lot of room. The second piece is, I think we will all eat. We will continue to eat, despite these new products that say you can just have this chemical drink and not have to eat. But I think we still all like to eat, so we will continue to eat. And third, I think specifically in India, there are changing consumption patterns on the front side. And, all of a sudden there has been a digital technology penetration that has happened that has reduced the friction and the costs associated in actually sourcing from very fragmented, disaggregated farms. And that's what we are as a country. So that offers an opportunity of actually, addressing some of the issues and challenges that Indian agriculture faces. And so that's why we also feel we're at an exciting time in agri investments, because this is, the digitization that is happening in this country offers a potential of unlocking a lot of value that perhaps would not have been possible 10 years back.
So I wanna ask some hard question about this digitalization. We all know the numbers, and the numbers of, or maybe the whole predictions of 2050 of rising population and decrease of arable land, and it's a pitch that we all take part in every now and then. But naturally, despite of all this concern, as you say, Ritu, there's a lot of excitement or hopes due to those new technologies, digital capacities that are being introduced all the time, every day now, to all players across the value chain. And we can see, if we look at the past 5 years, we see a new flock of innovators that are getting into the space, which are innovators not from agricultural background. Right. They see the opportunities that you talk about, and they come into they get into the agricultural sector, and they are followed by new investors that are excited about the space. And actually, we see new players that it's the first time they actually engage with this kind of sector. So, in general, the money is flowing in. There's a lot of investment in ag. But if we look the past 5 years about commercial success, it's fairly questionable and limited. And my question, I think it's the most fundamental question for investors, but it reflects immediately on the entrepreneurs. Is there an opportunity really? Is there why invest in agriculture, or what makes agricultural investment stand out from other sectors? And if it's wise, it is wise. Maybe we'll start with you again, as you said, the excitement.
So maybe I could talk you through an example, right? So one of the things that has seen a lot of investment globally, right? Starting from Climate Corp being acquired by Monsanto. And then a slew of these things that came up globally, which was looking at farm management, basically, is here, right? Now, I was actually talking to a gentleman who looks globally at sort of investments, and we are India focused, and in India, asking the farmer to buy a smallholder farmer to say, look, I'm going to sell you a farm management app, please pay me for it, is just absolutely ridiculous, right? And I was surprised to hear that, a lot of these newer set of buys, which I thought, okay, in the US, you have 3,000, 5,000 acre farmers that, they can afford to pay the $5, $10, and there is a different value proposition for people to use it on the farm. Apparently not, right? So apparently digital advisory, or whatever you want to call it, is not something that has paid out, and all the freemium models have just seen lots of sign-ons, but the payment hasn't actually sort of come in. But we have a company in this space who does not sell to farmers. And let me take a step back, right? So there is there are ERP systems that have been developed for different sectors globally, right? Not for agri, basically. Yeah, it's a large global market, right? There is a certain specificity to it. So I think you have to also come at the market. I think if you look at agriculture just as general, there are a lot of things which I don't think are investable. You have to take a look at where exactly within this there are the opportunities that are investable from a financial perspective. So once you flip that problem around and say, hey, look, where there are large agri buyers globally, they're getting bigger and bigger and consolidated due to many different reasons, how you buy and where you source from, and the demands that are happening for traceability, etc., of our food. The ground's not going to change that fast. I mean, I think that's a very long journey, right? You've got to figure out how your business works more efficiently, works better as you expand, as you're forced to expand sourcing in a much more global food market. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then as a business, what are your pain points and what will you pay for and how do I address that? And through that, you may get to the smallholder farmer. But to expect that the farmer really here is the customer, I think that's something that is somewhere flawed in some of these things. So I think if I were to come back to your question about, I think there is money to be made. There are people who are making money. Mm-hmm. It may not happen all the way. I think if you just walk off the street and say, okay, I'm going to walk into agri, I don't think that works. This is an industry that has been around for ages. You better be willing to get your hands dirty and understand what's happening.
The question of is investing in agricultural technology a good thing? Let's take the two largest, most recent acquisitions in the space globally, right? So you have DuPont buying Granular, and you have John Deere buying Blue River, okay? Why did DuPont buy Granular? A, because it's an ERP system for large farmers in a space where no ERP systems have really been developed at scale. And they wanted that to be kind of their digital foothold on farm. I agree with you, by the way, that there are a lot of, sign-ups and no payments, but Granular wasn't that. Granular was kind of the SAP of agriculture in the US and had a very good team. That's why it got acquired. Why did Blue River get acquired? Blue River got acquired because they figured out how to enable farm machinery with vision learning, right, very effectively. And so you essentially have an artificial intelligence embedded and a robotic strategy that's embedded in farm machinery. And so the largest farm machinery company in the world, which did not have those skill sets, acquired them. I think, in general, when you look at what's going to get acquired, right, or what's going to scale up, it's going to be these places where new technologies have been created that the agricultural industry does not have capabilities in and wants to get those capabilities, wants to merge those capabilities with itself. And I think those create exit opportunities for investors like us. I can't disclose this deal because it's still being finalized, but we have a portfolio company where a global player, but predominantly a European player, is getting into an acquisition path with that company. Because an Indian entrepreneur has developed a set of technologies that can scale across its entire global sales system. And that's something that hopefully by the end of this month I'll get to talk about. Mm-hmm. I agree with Ritu that the nature of ag tech in India is a little bit different. It is very, very, very hard to do direct to farmer sales in this country. That's why even someone like Anil over here, right, has a dealer network, right, has a huge field force and a dealer network, and it's still very, very difficult. But I think when I look at kind of our portfolio and how it's scaled, a lot of it is through partnerships, and a lot of it is through the fact that there are players that aggregate huge numbers of farmers that they do business with, that a small startup can interface with and access. Right, so Skymet reaches millions of farmers every year through the ag insurance industry. right? Stellapse is reaching now millions of farmers because they work with practically every dairy cooperative and private dairy in India. Each one of those is working with huge numbers of farmers. If I look at something like, if I look at EcoZen, for example, are small farmers buying EcoZen's micro cold storage system that costs 11 lakh? No. Are groups of farmers coming together to buy it? Yes. Are farmer producer companies buying it? Yes. Are farming families coming together to buy it? Yes. Are traders buying it for mandis? Yes. So just because the farmers here, I always try to describe I had to say this yesterday, that India is an agricultural ecosystem that is characterized by small farmers and huge agribusiness companies, right? And those companies have become this way because they have started from the very beginning learning how to interact with small farmers. And I think for startups, there is a way to kind of navigate the system and do quite well.
So I think I spot some young innovators and investors here this morning, and certainly some that are at least young at heart in terms of being future innovators and investors. And I think there are two compelling reasons.
What if we're neither?
We need to talk. I think there are at least two reasons, stepping back, why you should invest, why you should focus on ag innovation. First is the social need is profound, and second, the economic opportunity is profound. 65% of the world's working poor are in ag. Improvement in the ag sector lifts the income of the working poor 2 to 4 times faster than improvements in any other sector. By 2050, it's estimated that we'll have a population of nearly 10 billion people. They need to be fed. So the opportunity to do social good is profound, focusing in the ag space. The economic opportunity, when we look out globally, we see a couple of trends coming together that really are, we think, helping to drive the economic opportunity regarding ag innovation. One is the rising consumer class as lower income move into lower middle income, and lower middle income move into middle income cohorts. There is a rising demand and expectation for quality, for variety, and that's playing out in the food space in a significant way, sort of the globalization of foodies, if you will. The lower income are insisting and need safety. The middle income need safety, but are insisting on greater variety. The second obvious trend is sort of the internationalization of food that you see playing out in many regions of the world, which again allow for great opportunities to innovate. We have recently established in China, just this past year, the Walmart Food Safety and Innovation Collaboration Center. And we have recently held a contest there which invited innovators in the ag technology space to come forward with ideas that can really drive food safety in a variety of more accessible and practical ways. The response, the quality of those applications, of those ideas, was remarkable and is, I think, illustrative of the appetite that's out there within innovation communities to be focusing more on it.
And had to face with bringing it into any smallholder farmer in India. So it brings it to the new part of our discussion, where what I want to understand, once someone is saying yes, I convinced that I want to invest in ag. What is the major challenges or obstacles once you do this investment to bring it to the farmer or to the relevant market?
So I believe there are multiple issues, because we should not think of agriculture as one. There are multiple parts of agriculture. There are farmers who are doing agriculture. They do a lot of value-added stuff. They make special type of vegetables or whatever. They can do greenhouses, controlled agriculture. These guys make good money. They can make $10,000 an acre or whatever. And they can invest into capital because the level of money they make out of agriculture, there is such a great return, it makes financial sense to get investments. There are farmers who grow grains, who have small 1 acre, they grow based on just a monsoon crop, one rain. These guys make few $100s per acre per year, if at all. Their need for technology is not some big gadget or some drone flying over their farm. Their need for technology, access to water, knowing when to sow, that level, that level of access to knowledge and technology they need. There are in-between farmers who do reasonably okay, but they are aspiring to do more, to give more technology, and they need handholding and access to drip irrigation. They can handle some app where they can get knowledge of the market. Now, so when you address these different segments in different way, I think you see that the agriculture technology is required by all of these people, and you can profitably deploy that to same. Now, in India, we talked about digital stuff, etc., and not a single company has really made a mark or made money out of trying to sell apps to farmers or digital knowledge to the farmers. But we are doing one project in Karnataka on 30,000 acres. It's one single project with about 10,000 different farmers, where we brought water for them from about 30 kilometers away. We have built reservoirs and we are delivering water to them on a daily basis through drip technology. And we have installed things like moisture sensors in the field, from which we get through radio telemetry, wireless information at a control center that in a particular field moisture level has gone down, and automatically in that field we are able to irrigate, and a farmer will get a SMS on his mobile saying that between 2 to 4 today your farm is going to get irrigated. Now, that level of high level of technology, I would say, is now being made available to even a 2-acre farmer in a cost effective way. This is one example. Another, we talked about global level of scenario on agriculture technology. I'll give 2 examples. In last 2 years, through our US company, we have acquired 2 agtech companies, one called PureSense, another Observant. While our acquisition value has been in a couple of $1 million, both of these entities, before they reach to that point, one is in software, Pure Ag software, and they're already in 4,000 locations in US on the farm installed. So, they measure whatever is happening in the soil, the nutrition, the water, irrigation, fertigation, the level of nitrogen, various things. They had spent $50 million to reach to that point, and they were going bankrupt because they could not sustain it anymore. Pure as a technology play. Same with another company, which was part Australia and part US. After acquiring them, we have turned them profitable very quickly. The challenge there was they were unable to sustain the cost of reaching out to large number of farmers. And so if you sell either a subscription based model or hardware, it costs maybe $200 or $400 an acre. If something is not right, and in the field a lot of things can go wrong, you have to go and service, it's another $400 you're spending. Your profit is gone just with one visit to that farm. And even the large farmers in US, we have found, are still reluctant to use all these modern technologies because they do not trust, and they feel that if it doesn't work, what happens to me? Because he is held responsible for the consequences and not the technology provider. So even all these new technologies will take a lot of time before they can really make a significant impact through agtech, as a combination in agriculture. But at the small and medium level of farmers in India, Africa, rest of the world, creating technology through which you can direct, for example, merely ensuring that water directly reaches root zone, or there are technologies in Israel or other places where they measure the water actually in the stem, not even in the root, and decide how to deploy, or use the polymers near the root so that it will retain more water. Or people are now using biologicals to, promote certain level of bacteria which would, do growth enhancement. Those type of technologies, I think there is an enormous, possibility, and we see that on a daily basis, that even a small Indian farmer, if exposed to the right level of technology, is able to do wonders in his farm. And so we have seen farmers who, as against the national average in India of growing 30 tons of sugarcane per acre, are growing 130 tons of sugarcane, and which is higher, productivity level than a 100,000 acre farmer in Brazil. So it is possible that a 3-acre farmer is doing a far better job than what a 100,000 acre farmer is able to do.
But beyond the trust issue, how do you overcome? There's and you probably know it very well in India. And India is not just India. Developing countries or developing markets. There's a major issue with, most of those technologies are based on a very basic model. You, the farmer, invest in this technology, and then in a matter of a few years, you return your capex and you move on. And here, it's a very cost-sensitive country, and you need to model it differently. You need to show the farmer that he has an immediate return or immediate cost effect. So how do you, maybe I'll start with Mark, how do you overcome this challenge after you got the trust issue?
So I would say it kind of works two ways. If it's a technology that adds a lot of value, does not have a clear immediate return, you sell it to the intermediary that gets value from it. So I will tell you that that we think drones, especially now that the government has articulated a drone policy, we think drones will take off in India. I don't think farmers are going to buy them, but I will bet you that within 3 years, every sugarcane factory in India, right, has drone operators that are covering their entire catchment area, measuring constantly the growth of the sugarcane crop. So, I think sometimes it's a matter of selling to the right intermediary that sees the long-term benefit, where the farmer, right, would not necessarily see it. I think in other cases, it comes down to having a product that just has very, very clear value addition. I don't know if he's here in the room. One of our entrepreneurs, Devneet Bajaj, runs a firm called Mitra, and Mitra makes precision sprayers that are tractor powered. The market for primarily in horticulture. These create huge labor savings for the farmer. They also have nice things like health benefits, so the farmer's not walking around in a field with a backpack slowly giving himself cancer. But selling these, while not easy, right, there's a clear benefit, right? There's more or less a kind of 2 to 3 year payback, if not a 1 year payback, and they've been selling thousands of units.
Is there an intermediary in this case?
No, there's not. It's direct sales. At that price point, you can't really do direct sales with something like agrochemicals at that price point, because you're talking about 1,000 rupees, 2,000 rupees, but this is a 3 lakh machine. So in some cases it's direct sales, in some cases they have a dealer. Where have you struggled that's given you this sense that it's so hard?
Actually,
No, I'm asking a question, because you seem to have been like burned by this. Where have you struggled?
India, actually, for me, is a very close to my heart. It's a market that I'm looking at a lot, and I'm also invested in Central Africa. And these markets that have they are lacking a certain player that we are usually go to immediately when we go to more advanced markets. I see it again and again that we need to tailor the business model for a lot of the technologies very differently. And
there's also just a different sense of pricing in India. I have tried over a 5-year period to do 2 different Indo-Israeli joint ventures, and both of them failed. And my joke about this, I say this, my mom's from Tel Aviv, so I say this with love, is let's just imagine, if you will, bear with me, Imagine this is not a phone, okay? This is just an objective piece of technology, okay? This objective piece of technology, right, is worth $1,000, okay? If you have an Israeli on one side and an Indian on the other, the Indian is willing to pay $10 and the Israeli wants 10,000. It's hard.
But can I just add something to that? Right. So I don't think that, very often people think a farmer runs a business and a farmer runs a very tight business, right? So if you were to put yourself in his or her shoes, right? I mean, you make an investment as a business, you're looking at a return of capital, you're looking for immediate value, you're looking for immediate benefits, right? So if you don't understand that business that he runs and you want to position that product, it just doesn't work, right? So you may say, okay, look, you can return my capital, your return on capital will be 3 years. But if you do look at what his returns have been, as Anil said, he's really not, even if he makes something like that, and you're asking him to invest in this kind of risky thing here, which he doesn't even know whether return of capital, you're doing some fancy calculation, but he knows what the ups and downs of the prices in the market are. That return on capital thing, and there are many other factors, right? So let's take the irrigation, right? There's a lot of other factors that determine whether or not he's actually going to get that water, right? So if you want him to invest in some really fancy technology, it doesn't pay back, right? So most often what we find is that people don't do the math sitting in the farmer's shoes as to what is the return on investment, and he's a savvy businessman. He has to be a savvy businessman in this kind of ground situation. He has no trouble. Fine. If you can find out what that pain point is, you can find out how his economics work and tailor it to that. I don't think you'll have any trouble.
We have a portfolio company, Barracks, that sells pheromone traps, okay, as an alternative to toxic insecticides. When we go to sell, when Barracks goes to an entrepreneur, goes to a farmer, and sells these pheromone traps, they don't say, "Oh, this is going to boost your yield by 20%." That actually happens. Sometimes 30%. But that's not the sales pitch. The sales pitch is, you buy this, you buy half as much pesticide. Indians will always buy cost saving.
When you look at farmers and understand their thought processes, right? They are entrepreneurs and they are the biggest risk takers compared to any other business model in the world. Now, and they have been kind of doing a kind of social job, right? Feeding the society, whatever, and not really getting the returns that is over a very long period of time. So when you go, you understand their pain points and you understand the entire value chain. So when we go and sell irrigation system to farmers, at the same time, we are also giving them, let's say, knowledge about the entire good agriculture practice package. We have created a gap on one hand. On the other hand, we have also created access to capital, because a lot of times it's access to capital which is a very important issue. He will get enthused, he wants to do something, but does not have access to capital. That's the second part. The third part is this, for the farmer, seeing is believing. So demonstration. So as a company, we have 2,500 acres of area where farmers do come and see, and we give them free training and knowledge where they can come and see physically how things can be done differently. And but sometimes the farmers would even say, "Oh, you have a corporate farm, you can do what you like." But what it happens in our farm? So in each region, in each smaller area, we have what we call very successful farmers, and we make them as ambassadors. And when we go and conduct the meetings, along with our experts onto the farms to give them knowledge, we also carry along with us these farmers who have been very successful, because he would learn and listen from another farmer far more effectively from any other company, or and with whatever you are able to go out and sell them. So a combination of dealing at a ground level with another farmer, creating demonstration impact, and helping him to go through the entire value chain in a systematic way, in a scientific way, possibly creating access to capital. You need to do multiple of these things really to succeed the way at least we have done, but still long way to go. What we have done is still less than 10% of India's potential. So the opportunity is so large, we need to work hard and do, move beyond. I mean, it's not about, and you are not selling a product. We have always felt that, we are selling a concept. we're selling a solution, and our solution has been that you can do far more with far less, and this is the way to do it. This is how practically it is done. And we started with fruits, then we moved on to vegetables. Now we do a lot of cotton, sugarcane, oilseeds. Eventually we'll do wheat and rice. It's a process.
I want to end up with a question to all of you, and I want to take advantage of the fact that we have strategics like Walmart and early stage investors and growing players like such as Anil, and ask each one of you quickly, what does it think is the most interesting field within the ag space, ag technology space, to look at, or to invest at, or to be an entrepreneur in the next 10 years.
And I'm speaking about the Indian context. The asymmetries of information and the inefficiencies that it drives in the ag value chain is something that is absolutely huge here. So anything that sort of increases or levels the information playing field, if you like, lets information from point A to point B be available, will allow the market in India to develop much further. We have a very, very small, tiny futures markets compared to the size of what we produce. Part of the reason is that quality, the information on all of this stuff. If you want to go look up how much grain we grow, it's just like such a difficult task. I mean, the numbers are like pretty aggregated. If you wanted to know what happened with this, it's just really, the numbers are really not out there. And that drives a lot of inefficiencies through this chain.
I would say, I agree with that. It's not either or, but I would add automation and machine learning to that. I think in general, farming is drudgery. It's a really hard job, and if you speak to farmers, they do not want their children to be in farming. This is not just an Indian thing, it is a universal theme. The only place in the world where new young people are going into farming, like in the United States, and organic. That's about it. And given that, and given the fact that we're sort of generationally aging in a very accelerated way in the agricultural sector, you're going to need to see automation technologies, not just in the developed world, but also in the developing world. And the extent to which those automation technologies can have machine learning embedded in them, and that means robotics, by the way, I think it's very powerful. We have a portfolio company, Eruvaka, which is based in Andhra Pradesh, and they build automation systems for aquaculture. Now, aquaculture farmers are relatively prosperous. They're like the greenhouse farmers that Anil was talking about. These people can make, $10,000, $20,000 per acre. But they're investing in essentially a system that allows them to monitor and manage their ponds remotely. And it's a tremendous technology. And it's coming, and it's manufactured right here in India. And I think we're going to see sort of significantly more of that. On the whole point about automation and robotics, and I tell this to my daughter all the time, you're going to see stuff in your lifetime that really looks like science fiction, right? Like we got 140 characters, and that was cool. Yeah. But the next 20 years are really going to see this space take off.
In India, and make it a cost reduction.
It's already happening.
Yeah.
Labor is expensive in India.
Labor is hugely expensive in rural India.
So there's whatever the Uberization of mechanization.
Yeah.
That's very on the way.
Yeah.
Thanks.
In the interest of time, I agree with both. I would simply add that machine learning and AI are going to be as ubiquitous as electricity. They will be incorporated into everything, and the shocking force for efficiency and a broad force multiplier. I think that food security as a right and the imperative of food security, food safety, is going to drive a lot of innovation around supply chain security and transparency of information, traceability of information. So I think you're going to see more and more information that is focused on knowing everything about whatever is moving through the ag supply chain, and that will promote traceability.
You said that you're going deep down the chain to the farmers, and you talk about food safety. Would Walmart, someone like Walmart, invest in biological biological new technology just to promote food safety in its shelf?
If we can get it for $10 and not $10,000,
Yeah.
yes.
Amen.
If you talk about investment and where one should invest in agriculture side and get good returns, I mean, machine learning, etc., is going to happen desired, but for you to make products, sell products and make money out of it, I think in a markets like India, it's still going to take a lot of time. But where you can make money faster or make good investment, if you study each value chain, across maybe 100 crops or vegetables, fruits or whatever else, and understand that where are the opportunities in disintermediation and early level of processing. Those two can give you a significantly high returns in a short period of time. Other things will happen, but will take far more time.
Or maybe I have a feeling for many years now that, and I'm saying that to the entrepreneurs in the crowd, this whole trend, if I might say this word, this whole trend of investment in agriculture that brought a lot of startupists into the space, created a lot of companies, innovative companies that creates great technology, but have no farmers or real agricultural background experts on their team, and it's shown that more and more companies are failing to understand what you just said, the value chain and the pain points and how you capture value really in the agricultural space and not just create great technology.
But I would call that a bad entrepreneur. If you're not going to go do your homework and you're not going to understand your customer, then somewhere you're a bad entrepreneur, right? Let's not spend 5 years understanding the market. Why don't you start with someone who already has? But I think at one level, if you are an entrepreneur and you've decided to do this, you need to understand what this is, right? Just getting an expert, those are specific questions that you can answer. But not knowing what your customer wants and what they're willing to pay for, to me is I don't care which industry you're in.
Is that the quality of talent in engineering is much higher than the quality of talent in agriculture. People in India who go into agriculture are people who did not clear their medical. They're failed. The agriculture studies, BSc agriculture, is a world of failed doctors, failed dentists, and failed veterinarians. You don't have moshavniks and kibbutzniks that wanted to do agriculture, okay? You have people that didn't become a pathologist. And so what we have found from a talent perspective, right, is that a lot of these people that are mechanical engineers and electrical engineers, right, as long as they can get some people that have at least some background in agriculture, their ability to kind of see value and engineer value is much, much higher than the PhD agronomists that we see in the field.
Yeah. I want to know how to use technology, because in my country, my husband do the sugar cane. I have the 6,000 hectare, but my group total is 300,000 hectare. So the sugar plant only plant waiting for the raining. So how to use the technology? Please teach me how to do. I want to help in my country how to do agriculture for export.
So, for example, in case of sugarcane, I talked about the higher level of yields. Those are available when you do very efficient irrigation, like drip irrigation, where you go straight to the root zone. And not only that, you take water to the root zone, but you also take the fertilizer and nutrients straight to the root zone. And also it's about the spacing. But you talked about, you're waiting for the rain and the sugarcane to grow. What I was talked about was that when you invest into technology, including irrigation, fertigation, along with the right type of variety of the sugarcane, that gives extraordinary result. More than 100 tons an acre has not been done at many places in the world. It is possible. Not only that, but let's say the average yield of sugar coming from sugarcane is usually, let's say, 10%. You can, if your sugarcane grows with the right amount of this nutrient and water, at right time, then you can get even higher level of the sugar coming from the same sugar cane. So not only that you get more quantity, but also get more yield of the sugar from the sugar cane. That's possible. And we can share with you that knowledge specifically about which are the best agriculture practices within sugarcane one needs to follow.
What should a farmer do to adapt to the climate change, particularly untimely rain and flooding?
I think if question is with me is that when you look at climate change is combination, sometimes drought, sometimes what is called wet drought, so you have too much of rain. First, creating some source of water, so create a farm pond and create source of water in terms of so that when it is not raining, then you have your own water. So that's one way to. Then second is to invest into something where you use less water than what you're doing now. Third, depending on your area, so climate and the type of the soil and the access to the market, you shift your crops. So if you are growing rice, for example, it takes 3,000 liters of water to grow 1 kilo of rice. You might move to something like maybe oranges or mangoes, which would require maybe 1/5 of that level of water. So agriculture is very local. So I cannot, nobody can answer the question directly, but depending on your scene, soil, water and climate, you can address by changing either crop, making different investment on the irrigation system or different variety of the planting material. The climate change can be addressed if thought is applied looking at the local situation.
This question is for everyone except Dan. Dan spoke about supply chains and trust and security, etc. Would love to understand if any one of you know of things happening in that direction. We have some prototype in that, but would love to understand whether this is something worthwhile in India. Don't want to have another startup where I come to know that my customers exist in US.
So we have created, for example, a project in Mango, what we call Project Unnati, where we work with the individual farmers, measure whatever they are putting, and do regular updates. We also work with TCS to create an IT platform to get the feedback from farmers. But it a lot depends on the level of the truth they have at their level in terms of, because you can't monitor that physically every day.
Not in India, but I actually want to add something on your question. Do you do any work, written in Mark, do you do any work on, because there's a lot of innovation in certain sectors that happen, which is more of the same in different parts or by different entrepreneurs or innovators. Do you do any trying to bring together some similar technologies that can adapt to each other or can be maybe unified and complement each other, or it's something that you don't, you pass that completely?
We would love to see the synergy. There's some bit of business that they do between themselves.
So you won't play the matchmaking role?
And keep pushing, saying, hey,
I also don't try to set my friends up on dates anymore.
Yes. Good morning. My name is Bhavya. I'm from T-Gulf. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. My question pertains to farmers and raising farmer incomes. How can tech be used to address supply chain bottlenecks and also tech in storage facilities in ways that can increase farmer incomes?
There's like 1,000 companies that are trying to do this in the horticulture space right now. Is that what you're trying to point out? Okay, well, there's 1,000 companies in the horticulture space that are doing this right now. We're literally getting like we're literally getting like 5 pitches a week in this. I'm sure you are as well. I don't know how it's going to work out, but there's definitely a lot of people essentially trying to directly connect consumers and farmers. With respect to storage technologies, I think there are a lot of different initiatives. There are people that are trying to build town-level storages, oftentimes with government subsidy, especially for potato. And like I said, we have a portfolio company, EcoZen, that builds farm-level solar-powered micro cold storage system.
I was recently in US. There was one company, they were talking about building an 80-story building, out of which 50 stories they want to do agriculture. And they said the total value of the creation of the produce they will do will equal 600,000 acres of corn in terms of value, out of just one building and 50. And they were talking about doing that, the building with the solar panels. So as long as sun was out for more than 200 days, they would start exporting even energy. So they won't need energy more than 200 days. And they were going to use 99% less water. So, I met the guy, I asked him, what are you going to grow? People are now claiming that they have technology where they can grow inside the buildings in urban farms, everything except the trees and vines, from including wheat, corn, everything else can be grown inside. But the cost of making that, building and what is inside, the equipment, the aeroponics or whatever else, that will work out about $50 to $100 per square feet inside those farms. So that's a massive new capital investment. So when you move from horizontal to vertical, but it can create, there is this behavioral movement, right? You want to eat local, you want to eat fresh, you don't want carbon footprint of imported products and so on in some places. But I think those consumers or that thought process is still these are 1 or 2% people of population. So it will serve the need of few, but I don't think it would meaningfully change the way agriculture is done.
It's surprising numbers. I always treat the urban farming as something that is nice to have, but it can't really meet the.
You should see this guy's these pictures, right? And he was growing trees on this in Israel, right?
Yeah.
So we were on a panel yesterday, and he has a brochure of, so his first bit is it's a water company that he's pulling water out of the air, and he was growing trees on vertical buildings. So outside, we're not talking about inside farming. This is on the walls of the building, basically, that he was sort of doing this.
Okay, so maybe with this, one last question. It will be the last one.
Hi, I work with the World Food Program, so we are particularly interested in the farmers that are left furthest behind. So maybe also those ones that aren't necessarily the most profitable market segment. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts or ideas on investments that would be relevant to a group of people, if different than the ones you've discussed already.
I believe for these farmers who are left behind, access to water and access to energy. These would be the two important ways one can invest. Access to energy, solar powered pumps or biogas related pumps, combination which gives them access to energy, and then the water, because as soon as you have access to water, you can take 2 crops or more value added crops, and that's the only way you can lift those farmers is by increasing his income. No level of subsidies or support can really help him. That's how I see it.
And that's not to say a new technology that somehow connects them to information necessarily, but just access to information, connecting smallhold farmers with their buyers before planting decisions are made is going to help their crops be more relevant. Oh, by the way, it will also drive down food waste dramatically. So just connecting smallhold farmers to more better information sooner, earlier in the decision-making process could be a great benefit.
I think the real key is the development of food processing, grading, sorting, and exporting infrastructure closer and closer to farms themselves. I think in general, people are always talking about raising the yields of smallholder farmers, and I think that's important. But too often what happens is you raise the yield, they glut with tomatoes and they can't sell them, right? And so, unless you've made the downstream investments, they're not ready to have the higher yields. They won't really be able to manage them. And so I think the really critical thing is highly decentralized, small scale grading, sorting, processing, exporting, across the kind of places where you find smallholder farmers.
I think it's just, expecting smallholder farmers and the risks that they bear, and to be able to actually understand, the more linked markets that these are. I think it's kind of ridiculous to expect somebody who has 1 acre to be, expecting to, whatever, how the world and how the consumer demand is going to actually pan out, and then let's make a decision based on that. I think that risk factor needs to move up, not be sitting there, because the planning exercise is better done by somebody else, maybe like a Walmart or somebody else who's at a much higher level. And this is much more of a distributed manufacturing, if you like, but the planning exercise does not sit. The
2 immediate things that helped were access to better seeds, before the water and energy will come in, and access to cooperative methods that can make it a better buying power and better understanding and better transportation capabilities. I think we have to close down. So thank you for speakers, and
thank you.
Yeah, and
thank you.